So, what do we got next? The next two transformations are not as common, but are useful with weak entities in identification relationships because the rates are set independently of the individual customers by the state's water commission. It might be useful to have a rate set entity rather than just rate entity that will allow us to capture some of that information on one hand and also define more complex rate structures. This slide captures some of that regulatory detail, as well as different minimum and maximum water usages associated with different rates. Rate entity would be a weak entity, identification dependent on rate set entity, with primary key composed by combining different minimum usage levels and unique rate set numbers. The customer entity would now be assigned an appropriate rate set and connected to different rates indirectly in that sense. Okay, the second transformation at the bottom of the second part of the slide would transform the weak entity such as rate back into a strong or regular entity with its own unique primary key and the identifying relationship into a regular non-identifying one. This would make it easier to reference rates just like an order detail ID instead of combination of order ID and product ID in an easier way to reference an order detail table. Okay, so we're going to pause here, and then in the next recording we're going to actually implement this entity expansion and entity transformation from weak into strong on the water utility example. So in the water utility example, we'll use the entity expansion refinement, the first one on this slide 6, but we'll leave the rate as a weak entity, a new relationship as identifying. In other words, we're not going to be transforming a weak identity into a regular one and identifying relationship into a regular one either. Okay, so the resulting expanded water utility ERD is going to look like this as it's shown on slide 7, and pay close attention to the left side of it where the expansion is taking place. So let's switch to our ER assistant. Okay, the current file is number 3, and we're going to save that as, again, for the purpose of preserving various steps in this data modeling process as number 4. Okay, with the same name refining diagram, so just change the number 3 to 4. Okay, and what we'll do, we'll add an entity called rate set with the following attributes. First, we have the primary key, which is rate set number. Okay, and then we'll have new RS for rate set, APPR date or approval date by the Public Utility Commission. So this entity sort of represents, in a sense, the Public Utility Commission in this entire story. Then the third one would be a rate set EFF date or effective date, also decided by the Public Utility Commission. And finally, RS DSC or rate set description. Okay, so we'll drag the rate set right here below the rate entity. Okay, and then we'll modify the rate entity, replacing rate number with minimum usage. So attributes rate number is going to be called min usage. Okay, after that it'll keep its primary key designation. We'll replace rate description, okay, with max usage. They don't have anything to do, it's just trying to sort of speed it up. Remove rate threshold, I should say, and rename rate fixed amount as simply fixed amount. And then same for the variable amount, and then close that. Before we close the entire entity, let's make sure to make it weak. Okay, so that's now a weak entity. and then close it. Now we're going to swap the rate and the rate set entities, and add new identifier relationship in a minute. But first, we're going to double click on the assigned to, and we're going to change the first entity from rate to rate set. Ooh, okay, I have to rename that. Close. Okay, I'm on extra E. All right, and then I'm going to swap the two as I just indicated, and then we're going to create a new relationship called contains, okay, which is the identifying relationship between a rate set, okay. We can have one rate set that has many rates, okay, and it identifies all of them. And again, both are mandatory. Specifically, rate does not exist without rate set, and rate set without rates also doesn't make sense. They're both mandatory. And as you remember, the one and only one, right? Rate belonging to only one rate set is one of the characteristics of the weak entities. All right, I'll try to line this up as best as I can, and save all the changes. Okay, so excuse me, we are not going to now be converting this back to the regular entity and regular relationship and insert some kind of rate number back, and then we're going to keep it like this and switch back to the presentation. Make sure the matches up, especially the left side of the screen, and then let's move to some of the other transformations we are actually not going to be using in this example, or most of the other examples. There are more, they're rare, but still bear mentioning. So some of the other less common transformations are described in the slide. Adding historical data to attributes, such as tracking employee title history and relationships through adding an associated entity in between, will allow us to track meter usage in more detail. Okay, new meter installations, repairs, and things of that nature could be incorporated into the data model, but are beyond our intro class, right? So the generalization hierarchy, or adding generalization hierarchy, the general sort of suggestion here is that if you can avoid the generalization hierarchy, unless there's a clear, compelling reason for introducing them, we're going to best sort of avoiding them. We will classify water utility customers into commercial or residential, and see some of the common attributes. But again, if possible, those are sort of avoided. Some of these, in general, some of these more esoteric transformations are best left out.